Right now in most schools, tablets are all the rage, and schools are buying them by the truckload. Now sure, these are devices that have some capabilities, but ultimately they're a limited computing device. I mean, after all, what can a student learn from a laptop that can't run a local lamp stack? And in those schools where students are lucky enough to have a laptop or a full desktop computer, people like myself, IT directors and principals, typically lock them down. Students are prevented from tinkering with the operating system or installing software or coding. And if you think about it, this is completely crazy. We hand our kids the most phenomenal learning tools of the past 2,000 years, and then we turn around and we handcuff them and we tell them that they're not trusted to learn about computing. So we wonder then why so many of our students are turned off by computing and programming. This is a model that's based on compliance and control. It's not about student inquiry and discovery. And you know something that's completely crazy? It's totally nuts, and I think we need to do something better for our kids. In fact, what I think we need is more soup and less nuts. So let me explain that. How many of you, show of hands, how many of you have heard the tale of Stone Soup? Okay, very good. This is an old folk tale, European, American origin, and has multiple variations, but it typically goes something like this. A stranger, a traveler, wanders into town, and at first he's shunned by the community. They don't help him, they don't talk with him, they don't provide him with any food. So the traveler has an idea. He sets up in the middle of town, he pulls out some wood, starts a fire, brings out a large pot, pours in some water, and out of the backpack that he has with him, he grabs this big stone and drops it into the pot. He starts stirring. Well, curiosity gets the best of the villagers, and one by one they start coming up to him and they're asking him, "Hey man, what are you doing? What are you making?" And he says to them, "I'm making stone soup. It's going to be fantastic, but it's not quite finished yet and it needs something. Could you help me? Do you have some ingredients?" And one by one, each one of those villagers goes back to their home and they grab some carrots and some celery and some potatoes, and suddenly the village comes together in its entirety and creates this fantastic feast. It's a feast that nourishes the entire village. So what's the moral here? Well, obviously, collaboration, community, and trust. It can feed an entire village. And that sounds a lot like the open source model, doesn't it? Well, it's also a phenomenal model for a classroom learning community. This past year at Penn Manor High School, we gave every one of our 1,700 kids a laptop loaded with Linux and open source software exclusively. I think it's the largest Linux deployment, one-to-one learning deployment, at least in the state of Pennsylvania, maybe the East Coast, maybe there's others. Let me tell you, when we went all in with open source, my fellow IT directors in neighboring schools thought I was nuts for going that route. But the program's been tremendously successful, and I think in part because we've been able to also bring in our students in various ways. When we launched the program, we spun up a student help desk, an apprenticeship program where our budding technologists could work side by side with my team on support. And together with this apprenticeship team, this past January, with my staff and with community volunteers, we came together in our school cafeteria and we practiced our own version of Stone Soup. Over the course of 2 days, we unboxed those machines. We labeled them, inventoried them, we imaged them, and got them ready for the full distribution. Now, of course, we needed some methodology to image these laptops. And we could have bought Ghost or used Fog, but we did something different. One of our seniors worked with us to build a multicast imaging system. He used open source recipes like PartClone and UDPcast to build a tool called the Fast Linux Deployment Toolkit, and it's remarkable imaging work for a high school senior. It's up on GitHub, and you can check it out. Now again, we could have bought Ghost, could have used Fog. We could have had the machines pre-imaged at the factory. But what fun is that? And what would our students have learned? With our model, we didn't just simply give them a technology meal ticket. We made them full partners in the restaurant. And with that, I have to tell you, the open source community has been phenomenal for us. For those of you that are developers that have worked on projects that we're using, I need you to know that you have been a foundation for us. You've been a stone in our soup, a rock and a foundation from which we could build a learning community that has been for and about our students. And for that, I thank you very much.